Greenpeace is an organization that's internationally recognized for its direct action protests, environmental advocacy, and its fight against big oil. But interestingly enough, Greenpeace was actually founded primarily to stop the proliferation of nuclear energy. Lately, the group has been all over the news for its fight against drilling in the Arctic. But what the corporate media won't tell you is that the organization is also suing the National Security Agency and is the target of a lawsuit itself by a giant logging company in Canada. So to discuss these issues as well as the Arctic 30 protesters, I was joined earlier by the International Director of Greenpeace, Kumi Naidoo. I started by asking him about the $7 million lawsuit filed by Resolute Logging against the organization.
Well, there's been a tendency by major corporations to engage in what are called SLAP suits, which stands for Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. And interestingly, this company, which is based in Quebec, did not bring the case in Quebec because there is anti-SLAP legislation which prevents frivolous litigation, which is aimed at silencing citizen participation and protest. So here's a company that is engaging in activities in endangered forests and is conducting itself in a manner that it is not engaged in prior consent that is needed with the Aboriginal First Nations peoples. And they have brought this action because we have publicly said that they are engaged in activities that are damaging Canada's boreal forests and have not participated in a respectful relationship with the First Nations communities involved. We would have hoped that rather than taking us to court, that they would look at the substance of the issues that we have put on the table and to actually engage with us, something that we are prepared to do. But sadly, this company has gone down the route of trying to fight it out in court. We are, as Greenpeace, are not intimidated by this.
Another really amazing suit that you guys are involved in is part of the Electronic Frontier Foundation lawsuit against the U.S. government for its surveillance activities. Why is surveillance an environmental issue?
Well, surveillance is a cross-cutting issue. It is fundamentally opposed to democracy in the sense that when companies monitor and surveil the membership databases of Greenpeace, they can see who we are communicating with, what we are communicating with, when we are communicating, and so on. And this has a chilling effect in the sense that it's a discouragement to people to want to freely associate with organizations of their choice. That is, the right to freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression are critical components of democracy. And when those rights are threatened, then democracy is threatened. So therefore, we have no hesitation, or had no hesitation, in joining this lawsuit against the National Security Agency, the NSA, for the repeated surveillance that they have engaged in, not only against Greenpeace, but a range of other human rights and other citizen groups in the United States.
Let's talk about the Arctic 30, Kumi. What message was Greenpeace trying to send by boarding this oil rig, and what's the current status of the activists in Russia?
Well, the Arctic serves as a refrigerator and the air conditioner of the planet. It plays an incredibly important role in climate regulation. And furthermore, the only reason why we can even consider drilling there is because we have burnt so much of oil, coal, and gas that has led to the Arctic sea ice actually melting. However, if there was a oil spill in this part of the world, it would be incredibly difficult, virtually impossible, and there's no track record of any company in the world to clean up an oil spill in such icy conditions. Essentially, the oil could be locked in the ice in the sea for more than 6 months, causing devastating consequences. Now, as far as the Arctic Ocean goes, this particular rig where we engaged in protest which, by the way, I also participated last year. We did exactly the same protest at the same rig with the same ship. And in that case, the Russian Coast Guard was there. They observed us. They saw that we were peaceful. They allowed us to protest for about a week, and no action was taken. So we were taken aback that this time round, because Gazprom has been claiming for a long time that they are about to start drilling, and they made that similar claim now. So we felt that we needed to continue to keep public attention on what would be the first oil drilling operation in the Arctic Ocean. So for those reasons, we attempted to repeat the peaceful protest that we did last year. And this time around, the authorities responded in a very different way. And we were quite taken aback about the piracy charges, which thankfully have been dropped. We find the hooliganism charges just as disproportionate. And right now, our activists have been moved from Murmank's prison to St. Petersburg, where 29 have been released. And one colleague, the first one to appear before court, who was denied bail and extended till February in prison. Thursday, he will have an appeal, and we're hoping that that appeal will be successful. There's a Russian proverb that says, the first pancake always comes out wrong. And so Colin Russell was the first person to appear in this round of bail hearings. So we hope that there's absolutely no reason for him to remain. Everybody else has been released. So we are quite confident that the appeals court in St. Petersburg will release Colin Russell. Then the question remains about what happens to the folks, because right now they cannot leave Russia. And we have heard statements from the presidency that folks will be allowed to leave within 10 days or so, but we've got no formal confirmation yet as to how that will happen, when that will happen, and so on. As things formally stand, the charges of hooliganism still stand. And of course, there has been a development just on Friday when the United Nations International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea ruled in favor of the Dutch government and asked the Russian government to immediately release the crew and all 30 folks on board. And again, given President Putin's stated commitment to international law that he expressed around the time of the U.S. plans to invade Syria, we are hopeful that there will be, by the 2nd of December, when Russia and the Dutch government have to report back to the International Tribunal, that hopefully this matter could be brought to a close by the Russian Federation complying with the ruling of the International Tribunal.
Why do you think that the corporate media attention has only been on the Arctic 30? Really, I mean, I can't remember them talking really about Greenpeace for years and years until this.
We know that in the United States, we have a very narrow media ownership, and that is one of the reasons why U.S. media diversity is so limited. We, of course, try to get all the different activities that we are engaged in to the media, but somehow it seems most of the media tend to cover the more visual images of protests and so on, because, one of the things that people find shocking is that of all the work Greenpeace does, less than 20% of our work is actually peaceful actions. Mm-hmm. Most of our work is scientific research, lobbying, advocacy, meeting with CEOs and other business leaders, trying to influence our governments, meeting with them, engaging with them in dialogue, and so on. But history shows that when humanity has, confronted a major challenge, whether it was slavery, civil rights in the United States, colonialism, women's right to vote, and so on, those struggles only went forward when decent men and women stood up and said, enough is enough and no more. We're prepared to put our lives on the line. We're prepared to risk imprisonment if necessary. So obviously we would prefer not to have to do that. But when there is such a high level of cognitive dissonance on the part of our political and business leaders, we feel that we do not have a moral choice but to, take those risks. Now, I should say that there are some good reasons why the media do not cover some of those actions. They tell very uncomfortable stories. Right now, for example, in the United States, we have, are suing two North American companies and two North American public relations agencies for spying on us intensively in the early 2001 onwards. Now, all of these things are newsworthy, I would argue. Why should a voluntary group of citizens concerned about environmental and social justice be monitored in this way?
Right.
It's not a good use of taxpayer money. It's done without the consent of the American people. It's done without proper compliance with US law. But it would appear that the media take a view that we rather respond to our paymasters and their interests rather than to present to the public important, historical. I mean, it's
Right.
quite a historical thing to have an organization like Greenpeace take two big energy companies to court for spying.
I just wanted to sum this up here to talk about what can we do here in the U.S. to push for real sustainability, real environmental protection here, because the Democratic Party has completely sold out to the same corporate interests as the Republicans. We have about a minute left.
The American people need to understand that what is at stake here is not only all our children and grandchildren's futures, but what is also at stake here is democracy itself. Today, the United States can be described as the best democracy money can buy. And if you look at which money buys that democracy, it's disproportionately oil, coal, gas, nuclear, and other polluting industries. And when you have, for every member of Congress, between 3 and 8 full-time lobbyists who are paid by the oil, coal, and gas companies, then you know that, in fact, your democracy is severely compromised. But the United States citizens need to understand that the rest of the world wants them to join with us to move to an energy revolution that meets our energy needs on the one hand, but also generates millions of jobs in a new, green, inclusive economy.
Kumi Naidoo, Executive Director of Greenpeace International. Amazing. A pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much for having us.